Nothing tests your strength quite like a powerlifting meet, but how do you ensure that your performance reflects what you're truly capable of? In today's video, we're gonna take you through the timing, the process, and the intricacies of warming up for a powerlifting competition so that you're ready when it comes time to step on the platform. Welcome to episode 6 of the Path of Powerlifting series. In our last video, we left off at what we call the lull of a powerlifting meet. So at this point, you've gone through the pre-meet process and you're waiting to get warmed up. But first, you'll need to know what sessions and flights are. A session is a group of flights, and a flight is a group of lifters. A session can have up to 3 flights, and a flight can contain up to 14 lifters. All lifters from the same session will weigh in at the same time. Your flight list should be posted at weigh-ins, so check it out to find out which flight you'll be lifting in. You need to know this because your flight will determine when you start warming up. If you're flight A, you'll start warming up about 30 to 40 minutes before the scheduled start time of the session. If you're in flight B, you're gonna start warming up when flight A starts their attempts, or very shortly before. And if you're in flight C, you'll start warming up around the time flight B starts their attempts. You'll likely need to share a rack with 1 or more people for your warm-ups. Don't be shy. Approach a rack, ask how many people are on the rack and whereabouts are you opening. Ideally, you don't want to share a rack that already has 5 or more people on it, or a rack with somebody who's way stronger or way taller than you are, but you don't always get the choice. You know who I would share a rack with though? Canadian powerlifting legends Ryan and Rhea Stinn. I like them. I like powerlifting, and so do they, which is why their company InnerStrengthProducts.ca has partnered with us to bring you this in-depth educational resource. InnerStrength has anything and everything you need to get started in powerlifting. It's a Canadian company, and it's run by some of the realest lifters and people in the game, and I can't exclaim proudly enough how happy we are to work with them on this project. So head over to InnerStrengthProducts.ca the next time you need pretty much anything, and support those who support powerlifting. A lot of people will bring someone with them to help out on meet day, whether it's just a friend or a full-blown game day coach. Ideally, if you're bringing somebody to help you out at your first powerlifting meet, there's somebody who has experience with the gym, or better yet, with powerlifting. And if the person you're bringing doesn't have that experience, definitely send them this video or some of the others in the Path of Powerlifting series so they have a primer and know a little more about what to expect. Whoever this person is, they should be ready to load and unload plates in the warm-up room. The lifter should not have to do this. Coaches and handlers should help each other out on the rack as well. Your handler should be communicating with other coaches and handlers to, at the very least, load, unload, and adjust bar height for all lifters in the rack. Now let's talk about the actual warm-ups themselves. In the description box below, you can grab the warm-up and attempt selection sheet that I made years ago that myself and the other Calgary Barbell coaches still use to this day. So open the Google Drive link and make a copy so you can edit it, and then you can follow along. The numbers that the sheet spits out are the approximate warm-ups that I use, taken as a percentage of your goal third attempt. The percentages are as follows. Warm-up 1 is the bar for 5 to 8 reps. Warm-up 2, 30% for 5 reps. Warm-up 3, 45% for 3 reps. Warm-up 4, 60% for a single. Warm-up 5, 72% for a single. And warm-up 6, 82% for a single. A quick consideration here, for everything except maybe your last 1 or 2 singles in your warm-up, just round it to the nearest 5 kilo increment so it's easier for everybody to load and unload. For example, if you're warming up to a 200 kilo opener, you don't need to take 67.5 as your first warm-up just because that's what the sheet spit out. Take 70. Bear in mind that any of the suggestions that the sheet makes are just that, suggestions. Any of the numbers on this sheet, attempts included, are just a starting point and a guideline. Once you've got your warm-up weights, we need to then figure out your warm-up timing. What I recommend is moving really quickly through your first 3 warm-ups. There's no need to rest any more than it takes to get the bar loaded and rotate through the lifters on your rack. Once you get to the singles at the end of your warm-up, that's where timing really starts to come into play. I'm gonna give you two scenarios to follow along with. One for a lifter in flight A and one for a lifter in either flight B or C. All right, so let's talk warm-up timing. We've got flight A lifter and flight B lifter. Flight B lifter, everything I say here is gonna apply to a flight C lifter as well. The only difference being the flight A lifter is starting the session. The flight B lifter is gonna be following lifting. They're gonna be warming up as flight A lifts. We'll go over why that's important in a sec here. A flight A lifter, you wanna be looking at the lifter list. This is gonna be posted on screens near the platform, but it should also be hopefully accessible online for you to check. Maybe 40 minutes or so, I would say at the minimum, you wanna be able to see how many lifters are in your flight and where your opener is gonna put you in your flight. In this example, we're gonna say you're lifter 8, and there are 10 lifters in your flight. In the flight A lifter example, we wanna think of each of these lifters as 1 minute, right? 10 lifters, 10 minutes. Now that 10 minutes is gonna be per round. A round is one time through the whole list. Each lifter taking one attempt. And we say 1 minute, we use the 1 minute thing because that's approximately the time it's gonna take for the bar to be loaded, the lift to be attempted, and the bar to be reloaded for the next lifter. So 10 lifters, 10 minutes per round, you are lifter 8. Now because there are 10 lifters in your flight, you want about 10 minutes between warm-up 5 and warm-up 6, or whatever your second last single and your last single of warm-up are, as well as another 10 minutes between warm-up 6 and your opener. The reason for this is when you take your opener, you're gonna have 10 minutes before you go again. Then you're gonna have another approximately 10 minutes into your third attempt. So if we can get you in the rhythm of doing a single, resting 10 minutes, doing a single, resting 10 minutes, that's gonna make everything just feel much more natural. You're gonna be in the flow of the competition and its pace much faster. So what does this mean in a practical sense? Well, it means lifter 1 is gonna go at 9 o'clock a.m., right? Lifter 2 is gonna go around 9:01 a.m. So you can expect to take your opener at 9:07, 9:08, right? Now I am being pretty, I would say overly specific here, right? Nothing at a real powerlifting meet is gonna be this clean and tidy. You're not gonna be able to say, I need to go at exactly 9:08 and be able to go at 9:08. If you go at 9:09, if you go at 9:06, you're gonna be fine. This is a rough approximation of how to time things out so that you do better at your competition. Once you have the time per round and you know where you are in the flight, then you can figure out this, right? When you wanna take your opener. From there, you go back however many minutes a round takes, in this case, 10 minutes to your final warm-up. So you wanna take your final warm-up at around 8, let's say 57. And then another 10 minutes back, your penultimate or second last warm-up, you want to happen at 8:47. So in this case, if the lifter is doing, a bunch of foam rolling and stuff like that, we'll give them 15 minutes for that and then 30 minutes for the rest of the warm-ups. Good, clean, easy example. Start warming up at 8 o'clock. If you have a bunch of non-specific stuff, 8:15, 8:20 if you don't. That should get us here on time to our first single, which should get us here on time to our final single, and here on time to opening at approximately 9:07, 9:08, given that we are the 8th lifter in a flight at 10. Then we'll have 10 minutes to our second attempt, more or less, and we'll have 10 minutes from our second to our third. So to conclude, for the flight A lifter, it's all based on time for your squats. Things change when you're doing your bench or deadlift, because if you're flight A lifter in a 2-flight session, right? You got flight A, flight B, you're flight A, you're gonna be warming up for your bench press while flight B finishes up their squats. So you're gonna be a lot more like the flight B lifter in this next example, which we'll go over now. Let's say you are lifter number 8 again. This is you. Same thing, you're gonna check the lifter list. This should all be posted the same time as all the openers for flight A. It's all gonna be there. Now, instead of looking at lifters as 1 minute, you're gonna look at lifters as lifters. It's a bit easier, right? For your squats, you're gonna look at the previous flight, where they are in the previous flight, and you're gonna mimic that. Now in this nice clean example, your lifter 8 in a 10 lifter flight, the flight before you is also 10 lifters. So that just means your warm-up number 5 is gonna be on second attempt of the 8th lifter. And your warm-up 6 is gonna be on the third attempt of the 8th lifter. Now, if it's not quite as cut and dry as 10 and 10, let's say over here, you've got 11, 12 lifters in the flight preceding you. You're lifter 8. So instead of matching yourself up with lifter 8, you're gonna match yourself up with lifter 10. You're gonna add 2 to your lifter number because there are 2 more in this flight. Now, again, I'm giving really like precise and specific examples of where you wanna go. Again, in reality, warm-up rooms are chaos. If you can get anywhere even close to approximating this kind of a rhythm and a flow going through your last couple of warm-ups, you're good. You're gonna be in a great spot. So don't be overly married to the plan. Don't be too caught up in the specifics of, oh, it's 9:09 and I need it to go at 9:08. You're gonna be okay. The last element of timing your warm-ups correctly is gonna be ensuring that you leave yourself enough time in the case that you need to change your opener. Now, if your warm-ups are going especially well or especially poorly, you may need to go to the scoring table and adjust the number that you put in for your opening attempt. However, you only have a specific window of time to do this within. I'll go through both scenarios again and how to avoid getting stuck with an opener that doesn't work. If you're flight A lifter and lifting starts at 9 a.m., you have until 8:57 to submit any changes. You have until 3 minutes before lifting starts. So in the case of this lifter, I would bump this last warm-up back to maybe 8:55 to ensure that we can see the last warm-up, make sure that the lifter is on pace and on target, make sure that the bar moves well enough for the load that's there to justify taking the opener that we submitted. Pretty easy. For the flight B lifter, there's a similar scenario, but it is up to 3 lifters before the end of the flight. So, conveniently enough, this lifter that you're watching here, lifter 8 on the opposing flight, I would probably bump this lifter's last warm-up back to the 7th lifter, or even the 6th lifter, so that you have, again, the time to see the lift, get to the scoring table and submit a change if needed. So that's the way it works. You have up till 3 minutes before your flight starts here, and you have up until about 3 minutes before your flight starts here, but more specifically, it's measured by minutes for flight A and number of lifters, 3 from the end of the previous flight for flight B. Wow, so that was a lot of information. You might need to go back and watch through that a couple of times to parse everything I said in there, and that's okay. It's also okay to feel a little overwhelmed and a little unprepared for your first powerlifting meet. The best way to get good at any of this, whether you're the handler or coach or whether you're the athlete, is gonna be by doing it. Hopefully, however, this video left you feeling a little bit more prepared for your meet, again, whether you're the handler or the athlete. Make sure to like and subscribe and follow along for the next video in our series where we're gonna cover in-depth attempt selection. See ya.